Okay, so it's weather time, and I know that usually you're used to that between the news story and sports, but in this case, no, we're talking about real weather, real climate, with a real guy who does it for a living and has all the credentials to prove it. Credentials, you say? Let me see. Author, president's professor, meteorologist. Oh, Randy Cerveny. Welcome back.
Hey, glad to be here.
Usually at this point I say, well, let me introduce you to, but you've been on television more than I have.
I don't know about that.
All right. Does the level of heat here, across America, around the world, this year, everywhere, hotter than the planet Mercury, does it surprise you?
No, it really doesn't. There were two things that are pretty much controlling what happened this summer. In the long term, it's climate change. What we are seeing is that these kind of summers are becoming more and more frequent. That's the idea of climate change. It isn't that any one summer is going to be hot or cold. It's that you're going to have more frequent of these. But the short-term cause was that we were under, and still under, a massive amount of high pressure. And high pressure causes the air to sink and warm, and it prevents clouds from forming. Those two things led to just an incredibly hot summer, particularly here in the Southwest.
Oh, but you used that term, climate change, and there are still people in high places who deny that it exists.
Yeah, I mean, the trouble is that climate has become politicized. But in terms of facts, in terms of looking at the data, which is what I do, I'm not a policy guy. I don't tell people what to do. I look at the numbers and tell what the numbers say. But in terms of the facts, it's pretty easy to figure out that, yes, something's different about our climate. For example, think about the last time that we set here in Phoenix a daily cold minimum temperature. The last time was around 30 years ago. When was the last time we set a daily high temperature? That was just a few weeks ago. So the idea is that, yes, we are having more frequent hot temperatures. Not every day is going to be hot. Not every storm is going to be destructive. But the frequency of these kind of things, how often we have them and their intensity, is changing.
But we're used to hot in Phoenix. Maybe not used to as hot as it's been, but stay inside. They are not used to this in different parts of the world that are experiencing record heat temperatures. You just got back from Greenland. Were the glaciers melting?
The glaciers, unfortunately, are melting. It's really sad because the ice has different colors. You can tell how old the ice is by its color, so that when you normally look at a glacier, you see white. Well, if you start seeing blue, if you see that the ice, the white has melted down so that you're seeing blue ice, that's really old ice, ice that is maybe 10, 20, 50, 100 years old. And a lot of the glaciers that we saw in Greenland were that color.
Okay, well, with your background then in meteorology, are you afraid of what might be the result of those glaciers melting and possibly causing some major dangers in coastal areas here?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know whether I would use the word afraid. It's going to be a different world than what we've been used to. That I'm thinking that the key is that we have to adjust. And it's one of the things that ASU has actually gotten pretty good about. We've developed a school of sustainability, of global future, so that we can look at how people can adapt, modify, and maybe even directly change climate so that it's not going to be as bad as what we would think.
Okay, but turning it around, at the East Coast right now, with all the floods and the rain, again, breaking records, do they wind up with our monsoon?
The monsoon is changing. It's become less predictable. I mean, if you've been with me for all these years, it's never been predictable. But now it's even less predictable than it used to be. Last year, we weren't anticipating a really strong monsoon, and we got one. This year, we were thinking, well, it's probably going to be a fairly normal monsoon. We've got nothing. So it's become really hard to see how the day-to-day weather changes are happening, and climate change plays a role in that.
Well, you're a professor of geography too, so I'm going to ask you to answer this briefly. Where is the mildest climate on Earth today? Who has the best weather? Any country, island, anywhere?
Well, I got to admit, I'm particularly partial to New Zealand. In terms of the garden spots in the world, I love New Zealand. And so even though its climate has changed as well, because it's an island and it has the moderating impact of the water around it, it hasn't changed as much as some of the other areas around the world.
Okay, well then you and the audience and I can make our plans. If it continues to get hotter than it is now, we know where to go, don't we? But don't leave for any length of time from Channel 7. This is Pat McMahon.